I'm here to talk about AI lead magnets, all right? This is something that I kind of invented. I might have invented a new form of marketing. That's a really bold statement to say to a bunch of marketers, so feel free to judge me as you watch this here today. We're gonna have some fun though. I'm gonna show you something. You're gonna learn how to write Python code using ChatGPT. You're gonna see a new way to get leads. I'll show you a case study of how I've used this in my business already. A lot of fun stuff. Now, I do want to point one thing out. We are not going to talk about lease magnets today. If anybody got the handout, there was a typo in there. I was like, I don't know what a lee is. I looked it up. I think it actually means grassy knolls, like a real word. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about lead magnets, right? So quick show of hands if you heard the term lead magnet before. All right, 70%, most marketers here, right? So hopefully you have heard that before. So that's what we're going to be diving in on, right? So first of all, let's just start out there. What the heck is an AI lead magnet? So in my mind, this is something, the only way to think about this is just to think, okay, what is a static lead magnet, right? A lead magnet is something, it's valuable, like a guide, a white paper, maybe a video, and it's so valuable that you're willing to give me your contact information in exchange for access, right? And this is a very common form of content marketing, highly, highly effective. This is the exact same thing. However, the idea here is that every single version of that lead magnet is completely customized to the customer. So instead of getting a guide with 50 ideas for videos that a small business owner should make, they're getting 50 completely customized video ideas that fit them and their ideal customer, right? So that's just one example. That tool actually gives you 48 ideas to be completely honest, not 50, right? But that's the idea here, is that these are going to be simple, one-purpose AI tools that you can give away for free in exchange for contact information, right? Does anybody want to see how they can make these in their business today? Just quick show of hands. If you didn't raise your hand, you can probably leave right now because that's what we're going to be talking about, right? So, all right, so first and foremost, I want to just show you a quick example here. This is a tool, it's one of the very first ones that I built for real estate. Is anybody in the real estate industry in here? A couple of you, all right, cool. Well, welcome, good to see you. You should definitely check out our school later on today. We mostly work with real estate agents, and so I wanted to make something that a real estate agent could use to try to attract potential customers. So what I want you to start thinking about here as you're going through this process with me today is what are the kinds of questions, what are the kinds of problems that your ideal customer, right, not just a generic person, but your ideal customer, that they would encounter before they would reach out to you. Right? So for real estate agents, this is just one example. This is not the only question somebody who's thinking about moving is going to ask, but one thing they're going to think is, where the heck should I move, right? I need a bigger house. I just had another kid. That one resonates a little with me. I just had my first kid 8 months ago, so I don't have that big a family yet. We don't need to move out, but we're starting to think about it. Hey, if we have a second kid, we're going to need some more space. We work from home, both my wife and I, so we're going to have to move, right? Where should we move? Well, we already have that conversation going, but a lot of people are thinking about that. So we said, well, what if we can make an AI tool that answers that question? We give it away to people for free. It gets them onto our website. They spend a lot of time on our website. Any of you that do SEO, time on site, obviously that's a big boost, right? And so here's how it works. You put in the area, general area. In this case, this example, I think we put in St. Louis County, a target price point. We have a bunch of check boxes. You want to try to make these things as straightforward as possible. So yes, AI, you could go in and talk to it and have a conversation and get the same kind of answers. We're going to make those into check boxes so people don't have to think very much, right? So what are some of the things people are generally looking for where they might move? Oh, good schools, right? Parks, lots of public transportation if you don't have a car, etc. How far are you willing to be from those, right? Do they need to be within walking distance, a short drive? Are you willing to be kind of out in the middle of nowhere to get away from crowds? And then you can see I also have a box in here for additional details. So one of the cool parts about an AI tool like this is it can literally take anything in as input. Now, it is trained to not take in things like discriminatory requests, okay? So it's going to protect you against that kind of stuff. But you can say things like lots of trees, right? Or, area where people have a lot of trucks or whatever you want, right? Any sort of weird thing that would be really cool. A lot of lakes in that part of town, right? Whatever's really interesting specifically to you, you put it in there. Then you hit find neighborhood, right? And I sped up some of this processing in this GIF here so you can kind of see how it works. And what will happen is over here on the right-hand side, after a couple seconds of it processing, you can see in the top corner it says running. you get these lists, right? So I verified these are real places because it does hallucinate every now and then, right? We got Parkview, Lindenwood Park, and I think it was The Hill. And then I did one more search and you get different responses, right? So again, you get Grantwood Village, Kirkwood, and then Clayton and Webster Groves. And that's it, right? So that's all that this AI tool will ever do. Now you could try to probably force it to say different things to you, but it is built to have just one purpose. So just a quick guess. How many times do you think people need to use this tool before they move on? Like how many times do you think they click that Find Neighborhood button?
10.
10? Any other guesses?
Once.
3 once, right? We find it's probably 3 to 5, okay? Right? 10 if they're really curious, they might, right? But the point is, they're not going to keep coming back and using it over and over again. And the reason that's important is that it costs us a little bit of money every time somebody uses it, right? But let me ask you this. How much do you think it costs every time somebody submits a request here?
10%.
What was it?
A tenth of a cent.
A tenth of a cent, all right? Any other guesses? That's pretty cheap. 100th of a cent, just going to get cheaper? A Bitcoin. It costs a Bitcoin. No, I'm just kidding. That's a lot of money, right? Yeah, it's a fraction of a penny, and that's going to depend on how much they put in, right? So the response you get is pretty short, just a couple paragraphs. You get charged basically per character when you use the OpenAI API. That's what we're using here, okay? So I wanted to start off there because sometimes I talk about this stuff and it's like, what the heck is he talking about? So now you've seen one. So what I want you to start thinking about as we go through the rest of this is what version of this would you make for your own customers, right? What are the problems they're having? What are the questions they're asking that we could provide them this kind of quality of response? And why I spoke on chatbots this morning, some of you probably were there, and one of the things I like about this approach versus a more general chatbot-based approach is that this is adding value. That's all it's doing, okay? I'm not trying to give them this tool to replace a conversation I would have otherwise had. I'm trying to give them additional information. I'm trying to answer questions they wouldn't necessarily have even come to me with in the first place. This is the kind of research a lot of people do on their own. Then they start to find houses, and at this point, a lot of times they're contacting an agent by the time they're already looking at some houses on a website like Zillow, right? So this is getting me in front of them that much sooner. So start thinking about that in your own business, all right? So what we want to do here, and this, I guess, I do this a lot. I start talking about what's over on my next slide, and then it makes kind of the next slide sort of redundant, right? But this is what you want to really start thinking about here. So let me, as you're thinking on that, I'll just kind of tell you the story of how I got here, because it's kind of a weird thing to sort of stumble on. ChatGPT came out. It's been about a year and a half at this point. Did anybody use ChatGPT like back at the end of was 2022 and feel like, whoa, science fiction is real? Like that's what I thought. I was like, I'm like experiencing a movie right now. I'm having a conversation with a computer. This is insane. What can I do with this as a result? That was like immediately. One of the first things I thought when I first used ChatGPT was this means that sometime in the next few years, we're going to be able to just describe a movie or TV show we've always wanted to see that no one ever made, and it's just going to make it for us. We're going to have our own personalized TV shows and movies. Now, we're not quite there. You've probably seen some of the samples OpenAI put out with their Sora model, right, the video generation. So we're probably getting closer. But I got excited. I was like, this is it. This is what I've always wanted. I've always wanted to have a tool like this. I've always wanted to learn how to code, but I have too much ADHD to learn to code, right? I sit down, 10 minutes later, I'm not paying attention anymore to the class, and that's just one of my weaknesses. So I've always liked the idea of having access to somebody who could write code. What can ChatGPT do? It can write code, right? It can write code in a bunch of different languages. I can now write HTML, I can write Python. Everything that I need to be able to do from a technical standpoint is now available to me and all of us. So that's the thing. There are no more technical limitations in many ways. In fact, the CEO of NVIDIA the other day was saying that, hey, look, we don't need to learn to code anymore. If you're that was a classic advice. Learn to code, right? This is the long-term skill set. This is the future. Not so much anymore. You don't really need to know how to do it. So as I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about the possibilities, the first thing I thought was, well, let me figure out if I can start to build my own tools for our students. So my full-time job is I run a company called Business Video School. We teach primarily real estate agents how to use video in their business, hence the name. It's a pretty straightforward name, right? And so what I started to think was, hey, can this write scripts? That's one of the main things our students struggle with. What do I say on camera? What should my videos be about? Can we help them write those scripts? Can we help them generate ideas for videos in the first place, right? So I made a tool that knows that our users are real estate agents. They don't have to go in and copy a prompt and put all that in. It knows they're real estate agents. It only writes video scripts for real estate agents. It only comes up, the other tool, with ideas for real estate agents. In fact, they can go in and they can put a single word in. It's kind of fun. You go in and put in like dogs, and you get 10 ideas for videos that have something to do with dogs and something to do with real estate. So we're eliminating steps, right? We're making the thinking process, right? That's what AI is. It's a tool that our brains use. So it's helping us think that much more efficiently. So I built these tools for our students. That was when I discovered, hey, this stuff is cheap, right? It's like a fraction of a penny every single time I get a response. And the next step as a marketer was, if it's that cheap, somebody's going to give it away for free, right? OpenAI gives it away for free. Their most recent GPT 4.0, they're going to give away for free. It's crazy. So, hey, let's see if we can give it away for free. So I started to come up with some of these ideas, and that's where we sort of ended on this point of lead magnets being an opportunity, all right? So if you want to go ahead and try one, get your phone out for just a second. And this is where I lose the entire audience for 5 minutes while you're looking at your phone, but hey, it's okay. We're going to have some fun here. So go ahead and scan that code, and I should have probably verified that it was working before I did this. Yeah, it's going to get you to text me, so that is correct, all right? So what this is going to do is it's going to open up, it should open up your text message function on your phone to send a text to our phone number, which is then going to reply with access to the tool. All right, so if you want to just take a second to do that, if you don't want to do it, make the person next to you do it and then look at their phone and you can play around with the tool there, right? But I'll give you just a second to go ahead and scan that. And you know what I'm just realizing now? We're all in like a hole in the basement, so you may not have a signal for this to work, right? So if you can't get the connection, I apologize. I didn't realize we'd be like underground in the room here, right? But you can check it out later, right? So what this is going to take you over to, well, did anybody get it to work? Nobody, right? Because we're downstairs. Okay, we're going to move on because that did not work. So look at it later, though. If you want to actually maybe just go back and take a quick picture of that. Or talk to me afterwards. I'll give you my contact information at the end of the slide. I'll get you the link and you can play around with it, right? This is going to link you over to the 48 ideas tool. So it's going to give you 48 ideas. So imagine like you're on our website, right? You're the kind of person who's struggling to figure out what to make your videos about. You type in what your business does, what you do for a living, and then you just describe your ideal customer, right? So maybe you're a real estate agent. You like to work with first-time home buyers. They're newlyweds, they're moving, where they have a dog, they're really big fans of City SC, whatever you want to put into that. And then it's going to give you ideas for videos completely based on that information, right? If you've used ChatGPT, you know that it can do that. It's actually the same technology, but we're just eliminating steps, right? We're giving people a very straightforward process. And remember, this is the kind of thing somebody sees an ad for. They go, oh, yeah, that could be kind of handy. They fill out a form and that's it, right? So we're not trying to make something that's all that sort of earth-shattering. We're just trying to help them just a little bit here, all right? So let's go through the case study. And then I'm going to talk to you about how to make these yourself so you can start to build them. So these are just the test campaigns, and I included a bunch of them. We always take anywhere from 5 to 10 total graphics. We put those in there. I'll write a bunch of different versions of the copy. Most of your marketers, you know how this stuff works. You want to do some testing. The nice thing about Facebook ads now is you just load it up with options, and it picks the winner, and it runs with the winner, right? So you don't have to think too much about it. So these are some of the different graphics we put together. In some cases, we said, hey, this is a tool, you can get to it for free. In other cases, we actually said that it would normally cost $20 to be able to buy access to it, right? But we're going to give it to you for free. So we want to kind of see how that differentiated. And then here's a couple other examples. So just to give you a second to kind of process what we had going on there. Again, a lot of this is pretty simple, right? Nothing too complicated here. Here's the results, all right? Now, I don't know, anytime I talk about lead generation with especially small businesses, I hate talking about it, right? Because what the hell is a lead? A lead is a very different thing to different businesses, right? So for instance, this is just somebody who wanted access to my AI tool, right? They haven't said, I want to talk to you about your product or service. So really, it's more like an email subscriber at this point, right? I would call that a lead because we're able to convert those people into customers. Some businesses will tell you, I don't want those at all. I only want to talk to people that are ready to buy. And that's obviously very hard to do, but that's a completely different version of what a lead is, okay? So when I show you this and I say, look, we're getting leads for $3.23, that's what it is, right? We're getting that person's contact information, they're getting access to our AI tool in exchange, and we're able to bring them into our system. Now, These are real estate agents. Real estate agents get, like, if you're in real estate, do you get advertised to a lot? You get a lot of companies bothering you? I know a few of you said that. Getting some head shakes, yes, right? Yeah, constantly, okay? This is like the most bombarded industry. Real estate, last I checked, spends something near 25% of total revenue on advertising, which is bonkers. It's an extremely competitive space. There's a lot of companies that want to sell to real estate agents. So to get leads for this price, we've done a lot of testing, a lot of different kinds of campaigns. This is one of the absolute lowest prices that we've ever seen, okay? So that's one part of this. The other part of it, though, is what is the experience like for the person who's signing up? They're not just getting onto our email list, right? They're actually getting access to a tool that's helping them make a significant step forward and is having an immediate impact in their business, right? So then we want to follow up with them. We want to make sure that we're staying in front of them. We have an entire 30-day email automation that triggers as soon as they come into our database, right? So we're continuing to stay in front of them. So, I mean, you know, the rest of the numbers there, that's a pretty low frequency. We probably could have run this ad for another, I don't know, 6 months, and we would have never sort of eclipsed the frequency we would have targeted there. And then in terms of what won, this is the ad that ended up winning. So I'm not too surprised that this graphic ended up winning, because this is the one where we said it's normally $20. It's one of the only ones where we said that there would normally be a cost. So that's something to consider, right? Is if you're going to make one of these tools and it is valuable enough. I mean, just a few years ago, if I said, I'm going to make you an entirely customized content calendar from scratch, I would have had to charge hundreds of dollars to do that. Because I would have had to have a conversation with the person or done some research on their company. I would have had to brainstorm for an hour, come up with probably a couple hundred ideas, narrow that down to the best 48, and then provide that to them, right? Like, that would be an expensive service. So it's okay and it's completely justifiable to say that there's a cost to it that you're eliminating, or you could even charge for it, right? If you want to have like a, you know, give me $3, you can use my tool 5 times, that kind of stuff is an option as well. And then over here you can read the copy. It says free custom AI video content calendar for small business owners, no strings attached. Get instant access to our AI generated custom video content calendar. Simply input your industry and a bit about your business, and the tool will generate an entire year's worth of video ideas, no strings attached. Click on the button below and gain access for free, right? So pretty straightforward. Really, you know, this isn't all that complicated, right? This is pretty straightforward stuff. We're just using AI in this case. So let's talk about how to build them if you would like to do this yourself. Before I go any further, I just want to give you a little warning. You are going to see some code, okay? If you get triggered by seeing a little bit of code, you know, I'm going to close your eyes for a few minutes, right? So it's a little bit, I get it, it's a little intimidating. But what I will tell you is I do not know how to write Python code. So you're going to see some Python code, but I'm no better at it than you are, okay? I've learned a little bit through having done this, but it doesn't have to be all that complicated. So here's the process that you want to go through, all right? First thing you want to remember if you're going to use ChatGPT is that every chat that you open inside of ChatGPT is like a new person that you're having a conversation with. That can be very helpful if you treat it that way every single time. So I actually have a dedicated chat that I've labeled as my AI content developer, right? It's my Python coder is kind of how I labeled it. And I come back to that specific chat every single time I want to move things forward. Now, after a certain amount of time, you might want to just start a new one and kind of copy in your most important information because, you know, obviously OpenAI updates these things and they get smarter and you want to start over. But you want to have a dedicated chat, right? So you want to open up a dedicated chat in ChatGPT. And then you want to develop the concept for the new tool and output that code. Now, I will show you in a minute how you can take a prompt that I already wrote for you, put it into ChatGPT, take a tool that I already built that again, I'll give you access to, which unfortunately is another QR code, so I'll have to text it to you after the presentation probably. But I'll give you access to that template, and you're just going to take those two things, combine them, and your chat's already built for you. All right, so that's all it really comes down to is the prompt, the example code, and then you have to describe the new tool that you want, right? So hopefully you've already been brainstorming a little. We're going to open that conversation up in just a few minutes. Now the next one here, number 3 is really important because it is surprisingly simple to make these tools in the first place, and then it is surprisingly hard to test them thoroughly because there's a lot of potential inputs, right? There's literally an infinite number of potential inputs with most of the things you might build, so you're never going to see all the potential outputs. But you want to get a decent sense, right? So this is where you're going to want to test it. If you get any errors, you give them to ChatGPT. It's kind of amazing, right? So you put the tool up, I'll give you a platform, you're going to host it, and then it says, hey, it's not working, here's the error, you just copy it, you paste it into ChatGPT, it goes, oh, I'm sorry, because it always apologizes, right? I'm sorry, I got that wrong, let me write that code for you again. It does, you copy it, and you go back, right? That is going to be the majority of this process for you. That sort of back and forth is a big part of it. And then the last thing you'll ultimately do, and again, I'll show all of this to you in a minute, is the prompt that is the core of the tool itself, which is written in English. So that part you can edit because it's just a bunch of English words. That is what you're going to change once the code is established, right? So we can make changes to these tools without actually changing the code. We just change the prompt that's inside of it, right? So if any of that started to confuse you, you're going to see it in just a second, but I wanted to walk you through kind of the steps there first. Okay, so here's where we start, all right? So with a couple things to write down as we go. And if this is, if you watch this next 10 minutes and you go, oh my God, this is too much, I have a whole 1 hour walkthrough I can send you a link to, and you can check it out later, right? So don't get too overwhelmed by this. This is a platform called Hugging Face. I don't know why. I need to look that up, right? It's called Hugging Face. It's like a goofy smiley face is the logo, but it's huggingface.co. So if you want to write that down, that is this platform. You can do this for free. So hosting your tools on Hugging Face, at least at the base level, assuming there's not thousands of people using your tools every day, is completely free. The idea behind Hugging Face is that it's an online sort of collection or repository of AI-based tools. Even Meta, Facebook, posts their sort of experimental tools on Hugging Face. So if you ever want to see like what's the most cutting edge, most sort of outside the box type things happening, this is pretty much where they're happening, right? It is a nerd paradise. So if you're not really nerdy and you don't like looking at things like code and lots of broken tools that do not work, probably don't go on Hugging Face, all right? But if you want to be able to build this kind of stuff, this is absolutely the place to host it, especially when you're first getting started. There are other places you can put it, but starting out, Hugging Face is the place to be, right? So what I'll give you later is I'll give you one of my templates, one of the tools that I already built. And here's what you're going to do to make your own version, right? So you go to the tool, right? In this case, this is my real estate video script writer. And you can see it's pretty simple. You just put in what you want and it's going to generate a script for you. What you're looking for is the tab that says Files, okay? So you click on Files. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to come down to this app.py, app.py. That's kind of the core file in almost all of these tools. Now, if you go to one that's a more complicated tool, like something that generates music or something like that, there's going to be more files, okay? So stick to my template and it'll all look the same, but just a word of warning if you get in there and start messing around. All right, now before I go to the next slide, cover your eyes if you don't like seeing computer code. Oh God, there's some Python code, all right? So here's what you're going to do, right? You go to that app.py file, here it is, and I sped this up, you know, just to kind of fly through it. You're going to copy all of it, and then I'll give you this prompt here in just a second, so don't worry about trying to write it down. You type out your prompt that starts the chat, you paste in the code, then it's going to say, okay, great, I got my template. What do you want to make that's new? You tell it, and there you go. That's it. Okay? So I sped this up a little bit. That is a 4-minute process. In 4 minutes, ChatGPT will make you a completely brand new AI tool that has never existed in the history of the world. Now, there's a chance it does exist because somebody else made it, but there's very low probability of that because these are all pretty unique, right? This is something you're coming up with for your customer. Now, let's say you put this in and you just cannot figure out what to make your tool about, right? I have no idea what this should be about, but I know I want to make one. What do you think you should do if you're in that situation? Any of those of you that use ChatGPT a lot, what do you do? What's that? Just ask it, exactly, right? Just say, hey, what do you think I should make? And it's going to go, well, tell me about yourself. Tell me about your business. You're going to answer a few questions, and it's going to tell you. I mean, this is what blows my mind when I use these tools is that this is not hard. A lot of people are just intimidated or scared, right? It's reasonable. We're looking at code. I get it. I get intimidated by code too. But that is all it comes down to. You're just taking existing code and a prompt that I already wrote for you, which again is only 4 sentences long. I'll tell you what it says. It just says, hey, I want you to act as my Python code writing expert. You're going to help me make new AI-empowered tools from scratch, but I'm going to give you a template to base them on. The only parts of that code you're going to change to make the new tool are the parts that are necessary to add or change the functionality for the new version. You're going to leave the rest of the code as is. Here's the template. That's word, not quite word for word, but very close to the prompt that I'll show you in just a second, right? That is it. Then you copy the existing tool code, and you're done, right? So hopefully all of you feel like you could do this, because that is not all that complicated. So what do we do next, okay? Here, oh, actually, here's the prompt. Again, I did it again. This is the prompt. So the thing I was just saying, let's see how close I got. If you want to, I want you to act as an expert Python coder. I will give you example code for an AI-powered tool I created. You will use this template code to create new codes based on the description I gave you. Only change parts of the code that are necessary for the new functionality. Leave the rest of the code as it is. Here is the template. Any guesses why I have to tell it only change the code that's necessary? What do you think happened?
Probably do us all things.
It was screwing around, right? Yeah, it was just changing random stuff. This is the kind of stuff that this is what you learn about prompt engineering. That's what that is called. When you write these prompts, that's what this is called, is a prompt. It's called prompt engineering, and there's an entire process to it. I've taken courses on it, right? There's all kinds of advice, and we won't get into too much of that today, because you don't have to worry about it. You just got to copy this prompt. But that's one thing that I learned from doing so much of this, is I would put the template in, I'd tell it to make a new code, and all of a sudden, it's changing things, and it's not working anymore. It just sort of broke it because it decided to get experimental. As soon as I told it to only change the parts that were necessary, it stopped doing it, right? As soon as you learn those things, make a note of them, save them somewhere. You can look these things up on the internet. You'll find a fair amount of advice. But those things you discover that you want to incorporate into your prompts in the future, those are your differentiators. Those are the things that make you a better user of AI versus your competitor, right? So that's the kind of stuff you really want to take note of. You want to mark down. You want to be able to come back to and continue to use in your processes. All right, so again, I apologize since we can't get the direct access. I'll tell you what, I'm going to show you a phone number later that you can just save and send me a text, and I'll send you this whole presentation if you want, or just the links to these things. What this will give you, if you want it, is I'm going to give you a direct link to one of my tools on Hugging Face that you can just copy, right? So you can go in, you can create a duplicate, and that's what we'll go over next, right? So if you get this code, so if you have this on your computer, what you're going to do to copy this is you go to duplicate this space under that hamburger menu in the top right corner, the three little dots. I don't know, it's probably the wrong term. The three dots in the top right corner, click that, click on duplicate the space, and then you're going to see this, right? Space name, give it a new name, because that's going to be the name of your tool. You see where it says space hardware free? That's awesome. You don't have to pay anything to use Hugging Face. There is going to be one small cost, which is the use of the API. But this is going to be free. And then down here, there'll either be one, or some of mine have two, which is just sort of something dumb I did. You don't need two. But this is really important to make a note of. You're going to get a special key from OpenAI, right? That's your API key. If anybody else ever gets access to that, they can use your OpenAI account and charge you for the use of that account, right? So you don't want that. You want to make sure that it's in here as a secret. The good news is, if you copy my code, it's already set up that way, right? So you're going to type, this is where that secret where it says add secret, that's your OpenAI API key. Now, how do you get that? I didn't put a slide in here for it because it's so simple. You literally just Google OpenAI API, you sign up for an account, you put your first 15 bucks or so in because it is pre-funded. You have to put the money in ahead of time, and then it says API keys, you generate a new one, and you copy it, right? So it's really simple that you can just sort of Google. But once you have that key, you're going to duplicate the space, put it in there, and you're pretty much ready to go. So the last part of this, once you've gone through and you've put your code on there, you're going to see on the back end, this is the app.py file, right? And you see where it says initial message. And again, this is code, so don't be too intimidated, right? See that message there, though. It says, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it says, act as a real estate marketing video scriptwriter. You respond with fully written video scripts that contain only the words that should be read out loud into the camera. That's a pretty ridiculously specific thing to have to say, because ChatGPT defaults to including shot instructions and scene settings and all that kind of crap, right? So it'll say like narrator, voiceover, in the dawn before the real estate agent emerged from the cave, there was one, what you're like, okay, no, and get rid of all that crap. I just want the words, right? That's the only thing I want. I had to say it that specifically. I had to try like 5 or 6 different things. Once I found that though, it stopped all the extra bullshit. So this is the easy way to do it. Make sure you think about that if you're getting anything extraneous. So if you read the rest of this, and like I said, I won't read all of it out loud. You can take a quick look at it. It's pretty complicated. It's pretty specific, right? There's a lot of different details in here, but this is what determines the functionality of how the tool works, right? So the other code is going to control things like the input boxes and what you see on the screen, but the functionality of the tool is based on your prompt. Now, ChatGPT will write an initial prompt for you. So when you say, hey, make me a new tool, you know, an example that I did a few months back at one of these presentations was there was a jeweler in the audience. They said, hey, let's make something that would help, for instance, like a fiance pick a ring style when they're getting engaged, right? I mean, I didn't know what my fiance wanted for her ring, right? So it's going to go in, you're going to explain that person, what are some of their style preferences, whatever you know about them, you're going to put it in, and it's going to recommend ring styles, you know, diamond styles, cut styles for that person, right? That's obviously a very different prompt. Once the tool is up and running from a functional standpoint, right, so you've been able to go in, put your inputs in, it gives you a response, the prompt is the only part you need to change. Now you could go back to ChatGPT and have it rewrite it and then output it and copy it over again, but what I would do at that point is just focus on these words. Come into the actual app.py file and edit these words and change 1 or 2 sentences at a time. Right? So a couple things to remember as you're doing that. Well, I'll just give you kind of one primary one to think about other than being really specific. If you're having trouble getting it to give you a quality response, make it take more steps. So I don't have it as an example here, but in a lot of my prompts for these tools, it actually has 4 or 5 or 6 different steps it's supposed to go through. And what that does is it makes it process longer. It sort of makes it, I mean, AI is not really thinking, but it sort of makes it think more. That's an easy way to sort of compare it. And so that's what you might want to consider doing as well, is maybe you want to say, look, I want you to go through these 5 steps, and then when you finish those steps, respond with the output that you've come up with, right? And that way it's going to give it a bunch of sort of step-by-steps that it should go through, and you're going to get a better final result. All right, so I'm going to give you a few more tools that I built just to kind of get the juices flowing. We're going to have a little discussion in a second. We're going to come up with other ideas for tools that you could try to build yourself. But to help on that, here's a few that I've come up with so far. And you can't just read one of these when we do our brainstorm, so that's not going to count, right? So you got to come up with something else. Marketing strategy generator. That one is similar to the video ideas tool, right? But it's entire strategy. So you go in, describe your business and your ideal customer, and it's going to give you up to 10 different marketing strategies that you might want to try. Right? So again, if we're trying to pick up marketing customers, those are the kind of questions they're asking. Imagine if you have a blog post that talks about marketing strategy, and this tool is at the bottom of the blog post. They read it, they go, okay, that was pretty, oh, cool, I got a tool here I can spend another 10 minutes on this website messing around with and getting even more customized responses. That's going to increase the time people spend on your site, increases your search engine ranking, all that kind of stuff. A lot of benefits to that, right? Home staging assistant, this is for real estate agents. If they want to have somebody come in and explain the home they're trying to sell and give them recommendations on how to set it up to make it look really good. We've got this one's kind of just a fun one I put together. I mentioned I have an 8-month-old daughter. She's not quite to the point where she's eating fun breakfasts yet, but a lot of my friends have kids that are. And so that creative breakfast planner, you explain whatever food items you have on hand. You can even also tell it if there's any allergens that you should avoid, and it'll give you ideas for sort of creative, fun breakfasts you can plan for your kids, right? Video backdrop generator makes images for the back of your video. Listing marketing assistant is similar to the staging one. And then lead gen strategist is also kind of like the marketing strategy generator. And then of course I have another QR code, which again, I'll send you later if you want to go try all those tools, which I think are pretty much all available on my, my website. So that's my contact information. I would go ahead and write this down or take a picture of it if you don't have it yet, because if you do want those links and examples and templates, just send me a text. You can also email me if you want, but that text line is probably going to be the easiest way to do it.